For the at-border counties, so they actually share a border with Mexico, the significant clusters fall relatively close to the Rio Grande River, the actual border. And then when you go inland, the near border counties, that would be Brooks County, our so-called Death Valley, and then Kennedy County, those clusters actually fall quite near major highways. And in interviews, frequently law enforcement would tell me that where they tend to encounter remains are near, but not too near, major roadways, because it's that, you know, human calculus of finding the path toward the major city and then avoiding detection. But let's talk about QSR. Again, that's qualitative spatial representation. Thank you. What did I want to tell you about that? If you look at the table I've constructed, this is just an example of how I broke down each newspaper article that I collected. Again, this was from local newspapers, not national, so Texas and Mexico. And it is biased, but it is a free, ubiquitous source to get a sense of how these events permeate the daily awareness or life around people who happen to live in South Texas. So what QSR allows me or anyone to do is, instead of using mathematical equations, you use logic statements to establish and clarify topology communicated in text. So the organization, the triple, semantic triple is what I used. The construction is element, relate, element, thank you, or node, arc, node. So fire department, an element is related to another element, the Rio Grande River, and the relate is conducting a search near, and so forth. So I'm running out of time, but what QSR allowed me to do, and I'm flipping through these somewhat quickly on purpose, is that it produced visualizations of networks of activities around death. And as I began to QSR these stories with the triple as the organization element, it allowed me to do a form of scaling up and summarizing chronologically, what is being experienced, at least as communicated in local news. So I was able to summarize what's going on in the late 1990s when Border Patrol's strategy of prevention through deterrence was established, and then in 2012, which was a huge year of death in Texas. And basically the QSRs were able to help me visualize the entry and exit of human remains, or the entry and exit of a migrant death from public attention. So I've run out of time, so we don't get to show the maps shared with me by my interview participants. But concluding observations, where do migrant deaths occur? Again, these maps that I've produced, even though they're quite basic functions that I used in these GIS tools, it's a migrant mortality profile for South Texas, a little over 10 years of time. And they are found and reported close to Border Patrol interior checkpoints. So if a lot of effort is spent securing the southern border, why on earth are so many deaths seemingly occurring inland, right? How might this serve both forensic and humanitarian aims? Far more interesting than where the data actually is where it is not. And this is very indicative of Texas. There's a lack of access, private land, lack of documentation, absence of records. And what this all feeds into is how might GIS help this process? It allows us to situate local knowledge and traditional geospatial analyses together. We're still working on the integration part, but now we have more of a story all at once. So the blank spaces become areas for action. So in a nutshell, to accomplish humanitarian GIS science, juxtaposing heterogeneous data together can provide a better view of the situation. And importantly, as geographers, it offers a means to understand and develop place-specific action. Thank you. There's multiple types of funding, but I'll move on to questions if there's still time.
Thanks, Molly. I think we have time for some questions. Yeah.
Would you show us the maps, please?
Yes.
Yes, please.
The interview maps or the like GIS
The interview maps.
Yeah, this one. Here you are. Frequently, multiple interviews. It was included in my RRB, map drawing optional exercise. When I talk to fire departments, when I talk to police, when I talk to NGOs, they're like, you know what, why don't I just show you? I know where people are dying. And then this shows a river tour I was taken on with a rescue team from a fire department in South Texas. Yeah, it kind of shows up well. There are boat put-ins, and the X's are where they know remains will always wash up. And the calculus, mental calculus in their head, local knowledge, experience is that depending on the water level, this river bend is where the remains will show up on the US side, or this river bend is where they'll show up on the Mexican side. And while multiple interviewees would say something to the effect of, maps are great, it never supplanted their local experiences and their knowledge. So I have yet to find a way or think of a way where it might be useful to provide maps other than it might help them in the process of applying for federal grants to support their work they're already doing. And this is a hand-drawn map that actually represents 10 years of experience of a firefighter who worked in Laredo and Nueva Laredo, which are sister cities across the Rio Grande River. And again, you know, when the current is slow and high, Mexican side. When it's low and fast, US side. And the hand notes are on there are the firefighter explaining to me. So I do love this map very much.
We have an online question. Go ahead, Jay.
Let's take this one in the audience first, then we'll take the online one in a second.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. So my question is, a lot of your maps were located in the southern 1/3 of the border of Texas, Mexico. I'm curious why you weren't looking at the rest of the border. I don't know if that was just your area of interest or if there were some other drivers there.
So here, let me just pull up that locator. Why I'm working here.
Yeah, because I noticed like on your QSR, I think it was that was actually from Del Rio and Acuña, which is farther north of your study area.
Yeah, the original ambition was to do the entirety Texas-Mexico border based on time and access that didn't actually happen. But also, the QSRs are a systematic means to start figuring out what's happening in areas where there don't seem to be a lot of deaths happening. So a lot has changed in 2020 to now, 2022. There's been a lot of attention in Del Rio. That kind of attention, that large amount of migrant death has not happened there before as far as news media is concerned and as far as accounting is concerned from Border Patrol and local law enforcement. So there's a shift going on right now. But at the time that I developed this project, I was working with NGOs and sheriff's offices that me and my colleagues had relationships with, so we could get access to the data, and there were people on the ground we could be held accountable to.
Okay, thank you. Also, did you take a look at where you looked at the differentiation distribution, right? It's along the border and then it's up farther north.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look at that relationship with physical barriers? I mean, obviously there's the wall, but also geophysical barriers, such as terrain, elevation, land cover. There's a lot of land cover in southern Texas you just don't want to walk through.
It's true. So generally speaking, even with the DEM terrain models and what have you, this area is flat as a pancake, so to speak, but it is harsh environment in terms of temperature and the vegetation. A couple of colleagues of mine have a paper out for review where they did that modeling. But factoring in what people seem to be doing, it's still kind of follow the major roads, but far enough away to avoid detection. So regardless of what the terrain is, the main factor seems to be, what do we have to do to get past Border Patrol or local law enforcement? regardless of what a, say, least cost path analysis might tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks very much. It sounds like the question from online is not there anymore, so let's give a round of applause to Lauren. All right, I'd like to introduce the next speaker. This is Guofeng Cao.
Hello, everybody. My name is Guofeng Cao. I'm currently in the assistant professor in Department of Geography, University of Colorado Boulder. And this work has been done a few years already. So you might find the information a little bit outdated, but still hope you guys, there's some interesting thing you found out. So this work is primarily done with my former PhD student, Ying Liu, who is now doing a postdoc in Montreal now. So basically, the topic is looking at the house disparities because of the exposure to the air pollution, primarily PM 2.5. So a little bit motivation. I think we all know the PM 2.5 is bad for us, right? It's a very small particles that can go into the deep part of our body, so they can do harm to our health. And then there's lots of study has been done in terms how bad they could be. And then the most well-known study is the Global Burden of Disease study. They estimating like 3.1 million premature deaths every year. So there's lots of damage to the public health. And it's also very well known in the United States. It's pretty disparity in terms of the PM 2.5 exposure and also the health outcome. Right? So there's lots of literature to talking about this. How a certain group of people suffer